Okay, Paul, I began the recording whenever you're getting ready to go here.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Just a couple minutes after 10 here. Have to apologize ahead of time for the time confusion that we had this morning. We had 2 or 3 people working on this, and I don't know why it's so hard to figure out a time, but I got the email out with the wrong time on it. So we're back at 10 now. I think we pretty well figured out this virtual programming. It's been going real well. We're starting over again with a 3-week stint here on programs based on everybody's requests that we continue to do these. And so appreciate it. I see some familiar faces on here this morning. We don't have a specific sponsor this morning as far as the session is concerned, but I'd like to thank all those sponsors that have sponsored this programming throughout the year. You know, most of them are our associate members, and we appreciate their support all the way through. One thing we would point out too is our associate member list took a pretty good hit this last year. We realized times are tough. Some people just couldn't afford to re-up and become an associate member, OFMA. But as you're booking your acts and you're looking at your things and you're planning your fair and you're going forward, I'd ask you to go ahead and you just reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in rejoining OFMA as an associate member. I mean, this is just a revenue source. And as you know, revenue sources are important across the board for us and for you at fairs and stuff and so on. So just something to keep an eye on as we move forward. We're talking about revenue. That kind of brings us to today's topic that we started discussing, an alternative revenue source. I know there's several fairs out there that are participating in this already with beer sales. However, there's always seems to be a different way to do it. Nobody's doing it wrong, but there's 100 different ways to do it. And as well as a lot of fairs, you know, haven't made that jump yet, but it does prove to be a very profitable revenue source across the board. As you know, with House Bill 665, kind of threw it back in the limelight. House Bill 665, Ohio Revised Code, dictated that the revenue that was generated from alcoholic beverage sales on fairgrounds had to go towards the insurance on the buildings. Ohio Revised Code also says that the county commissioners are responsible for the insurance on the building. So we had contradicting law that was in there. And with House Bill 665, we were able to get that cleaned up. It no longer says that that money needs to be go towards the payment on insurance, and it's yours to keep and do what you want to with. So that brings us to today's topic. I reached out to Cara Mullenkamp, our Mercer County Fair manager, to put something together, and she certainly agreed and put it, grabbed Dan Bolin, past president of Ohio Fair Managers as well. We appreciate them taking the time, and I know I was short notice to Cara too about getting this together, and I just can't say thank you enough, Cara, for wrapping this up and getting a presentation put together. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the 2 of them and let them take the lead, and we'll run through it. We'll have a few more things we can talk about at the end of today too. So Cara, Dan?
Dan, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah,
a little background.
I can do that. I'm Dan Bolin. I am the treasurer at the Greene County Fair. I've had that job for about a year now. I was past president, so I have been on that board for 30 years. So a long time. And I am the immediate past president for the Ohio Fair Managers Association. Cara?
And I am the fair manager for the Mercer County Fairgrounds. I started working in the office here in 2007 and became manager in 2012, and love what I'm doing. I enjoy it. Definitely comes with its challenges, but totally worth it. And being asked to share beer sales with you. I'm by no means an expert in this area, but I'm sure Dan and I will throw what we know, and hopefully you guys can take something from there.
Going back to what Paul was talking about on House Bill 665, it does remove that law in there that the sales or what you made off of beer had to go for the cost of your building insurance, which is probably a very good thing for all fair boards. But no fair board's probably ever made enough money to cover insurance. The good thing about us is our commissioners never really pushed on what we were doing. So they just kind of let us go with it and never asked us what we were making, where we were at. So that kind of helped us in that, but it's, you know, a little bit of money and it was good for what we did. So Howard, next.
Okay, ready, set, go. So you've gotten approval from your county commissioners, your board. Now where do you start? Insurance for me seems to be one of my first questions that I tend to go with is, what do I need to do to comply with those regulations so that I know that if an incident should happen, that we, you know, are covered to the extent. Permits, I threw in a link here if anybody, you know, wants the presentation here, the PowerPoint. This takes you directly to all the different permits through the Ohio Division of Liquor Control. Typically for us, for our fair, we do 2 F permits. It's, you know, beer only. You can apply for that 2 consecutive times in a 30-day period. So we'll actually apply for 2 F permits. And as far as permits go, in January, I typically look at our calendar of events, and then I submit all of our permits at once. It's time consuming to do those. And if I can just block out a morning or an afternoon to get all those done and chase everybody around for their signatures, it seems to work a lot better. Dan, feel free to stop me if you want to throw anything in.
Well, and a couple things on that, especially on the permits. That's like you said, you get 2. So we all have to understand that those permits are only good for 5 days. So if you have a 6-day fair or a 7-day fair, you have to get 2 consecutive, like what we do for our fair, because we're a 7-day fair. We get 1 for 4 days and 1 for 3 days. So some, you know, you can go to where you only have a 5-day where you're only doing that. But Cara's right. I mean, it's easier to get those done early, and officially they got to be in 30 days prior. So if you don't have that in there 30 days prior, you're going to be begging and chasing Division of Liquor Control for that permit. And there's been a couple times in my life where we have forgotten, and Cara's right, that I've had to drive it up there and beg them to pass that thing within a week. So, you know, that's something that really is something you need to do. On insurance, the thing that we have decided is we on our policy, we just get insurance for liquor insurance for a year. The cost was better if we bought it for the year versus just buying it for individual events. So we decided to just put that on, and that's part of our insurance policy that we have. So, Cara?
So here at Mercer County, we have a point person that is in charge of our beer garden and alcohol sales. They do the inventory on it. They, in particular for the beer garden, they book the bands. This is just kind of their duty for the board. I would suggest having, you know, a point person that you can go to, because those bands are calling, they are wanting to talk to somebody. And if you can have a centralized person, it just seems like it streamlines things. When I first started, Amy helped, but then I was, you know, trying to balance that and other things. And it just has helped to have one person. Dan, do you guys have a specific committee that does it, or a person?
We have a board member who's in charge of the beer on the grounds during the fair, and they do basically the same thing. I mean, they're contacting the distributor, but they're making sure that everything's there for the entertainment that we have during those times that we have entertainment. And you're correct. I mean, that's the best thing that happens for us, is, you know, to have just a single person. That person collects the money, brings it to the office, it's counted, So if they need change, they're the ones running change and they're doing everything for that. So you are correct.
And something I guess I kind of just touched on, this board member in our audit 2 years ago, they wanted to know basically an inventory of our alcohol sales. So Amy takes care of inventory multiple times throughout the week, just to, you know, show that we are, you know, balancing out, and it's not just a free for all, I guess. Dan kind of touched on distributors. So I would suggest contacting distributors to notify them of your events. Many times the distributors, especially in our area, say the week of the fair, they have 3 other major events going on in their region. And we struggle to get all the coolers and reefers and all that we need. But if I didn't, you know, go in January and say, hey, here's my dates, this is what's going on. You know, if I'd wait until July, they may say, hey, I've already got them someplace else. So I'd make sure to get a hold of them. When I first started, I had my sales rep would always want me to decide how much quantity I wanted brought. And I finally told him, I said, you guys know events, you know, I can tell you how many people I anticipate being at this event, but I need you to, you know, figure it out, bring what we need to have. And, you know, for the nights of the concert, they're on standby and ready to go if we need something at the last minute.
The thing, the distributor, you have to work with them, but I think some of the positive things is after probably about our 5th year, our distributor now gives us sponsorship money. So that's money you can go ask for them. Once they figure out how much you're using every year, they'll give money back to you. So, I mean, that's something to ask those. Don't ever hesitate to ask them. They can always give you your signage. They can always give you gifts. You know, if you're doing some of the stuff we talked about that'll be down earlier, cornhole tournaments, they can give you prizes for those type of things. So don't hesitate to ask those people for things, because they'll give you whatever 9 times out of 10 you need.
Okay, next. Okay, so safe alcohol sales and security. We are very much blessed here in Mercer County that we have a great group of individuals that we work with through the sheriff's office. We meet multiple times through the years, or through the year leading up to our events. And as you can see, they like to have fun. There was a picture here down below of we had jousting on the track, and they were just being goofy in the back conference room. And so you can tell what kind of guys we're working with. But the biggest thing is you never know when you're going to be in an incident where you need them to back you up. And it's easier, in my opinion, to try to work with them and do the best possible job that I can do and help make their job easier whenever I possibly can. So, you know, I guess we have asked multiple times what the expectations are from the sheriff's office. We, since we're on county property, we deal directly with the county sheriff. Some of you guys may need to get a hold of your city police chief, depending on the location of your grounds. But, you know, it's important that you have this conversation with them. And it definitely shows when you, going back to insurance, that you are, when you have these conversations and you explain to them, you know, that helps if something should happen and you have to, you know, go defend yourself in a court of law. It can show, you know, hey, I put together that effort. And then that kind of leads into, the safe alcohol sales and training your workers. We give all of our volunteers, our beer garden and our concert and everything is strictly volunteers that come in and help us serve alcohol. We try to keep a board member present at different times, peak, jumping in, but during the peak times, late in the evening, we have them there. But we always have a form up in multiple places that say these are our expectations, and you're not supposed to be be aware of who you're serving and when enough is enough. And Dan, you want to kind of touch on how you do the limited number of beverages?
Sure. And getting back to law enforcement, one of the things in talking about your people that you guys use, we use the Police Athletic League to pour for us. So that's an offshoot of the sheriffs. So the money that he generates, or they generate off of that, they give back to the community for youth, sports. So it's kind of a positive, because most of the people that are pouring for us are either spouses of sheriffs or deputies, or off-duty deputies, retired deputies. So that helps us. A person can only take two beers at a time. So they can't come and buy 4 or 5. They can only take 2. That's our requirements. We have ID scanners that we scan the ID, so it automatically tells you that if they're good or not. We rent those. We don't have them, but we rent them for the week of the fair. It's really easy. You just take your driver's license, swipe it. It does all 50 states. So that's a very positive. And that's kind of where we handle it. But using that service organization to pour for us is such a positive thing. And then 2 of their people are tip certified, which is the server training that she's got down there. And that's positive. One of them is always there where we're pouring, so that they can make sure that they understand what's going on. So, Cara?
Okay, if you want to go on to the next slide. So it was kind of interesting for me to talk to Dan here as we were preparing to hear about their policies in regards to location. So I kind of have put down here some different areas, and Dan, feel free to jump in whenever. So for example, we started out with one location when we started selling beer many years ago, and it has grown now to the beer garden, infield, and the grandstands. Dan does it a little bit different. If you want to share what you guys have.
And we did the same thing. We initially started with just a beer garden, and 2 years later, we did the beer garden grandstands. And then here 3 years ago, we went fence to fence. So you can go the whole entire grounds with the beer. You cannot take it in any of the barns. All the barns will be marked that, no alcohol beyond this point. But if we all know and know how many parents have fair cups, we know how hard that. So, and we don't, if there's a youth event at the grandstands, we do not sell during that event, like our calf scramble, which is for the 4-H, we do not sell it there. But every other event at the grandstands, we do sell, beer at the grandstands and have it there. So, and it's worked out well. We've not had issues. We worked with our sheriff and talked to him and asked if he had a problem with this, and he said he did not think so. One thing that I forgot to say initially, one of the things we did when we started our beer garden was we had a sheriff the whole time it was open. There was a deputy at the gardens, and that was their request, and we had no problem with that. So, and then 2 years into this, they decided they didn't need that. So, that just shows that you don't have the issues, the problem. So, but us going fence to fence, we have not had an issue with anything.
we have our law enforcement come in, and basically we ask them to flush the beer garden out at the end of the night. So at last call, they, come make their presence be known. And then after that last song is played, they just basically herd them like cattle out of the entrance there. And that's been a big helper because, everybody wants to stick around and chat and spend time there. We are a little bit different. We have fenced in areas for our beer garden, but we actually, when I submit our permit, we do the entire grounds, so fence to fence, but we have isolated areas. We do not allow it to go out on the grounds. We know it's there, but we just have it strictly in these areas. It is definitely something that I'd like to look into a little bit further. And so I was kind of trying to ask Dan some questions there the other day. We do have a policy though, during motorsports that has been dictated through the law enforcement that so for like our demolition derby and tractor pulls, they do not want alcohol sales in the grandstand. And we do put a different wristband on our participants in those events so that, hopefully they're not going up and purchasing alcohol. Let's go on to the next slide. So entertainment, it's looking at different ideas on how to, generate revenue. So obviously everybody knows bands and DJs. We do a happy hour. Then, that's on the weekends, we start at early afternoon. And then on the weekdays, it is just an hour before we open up there at 6 o'clock. Something new that we're doing this year, they're going to do, it's kind of like a girls' night out scenario, but it's actually going to be Saturday afternoon. We've got some different boutiques that are coming in and setting up in the beer garden, just kind of showing, their wears and tears, and really focusing in on the women at that point. We have done different promotional items in the beer garden where, if you buy this plastic mug or stein, whatever it might be, you get a week-long discount. And then it's labeled with our logo and they have something to take home, reuse, and our logo is out there in the public forever then. Craft beer, I'll show you down here, the Aviator. So we have a local brewery in our county that's called Tailspin. So they brewed Aviator Farmhouse Ale for the 2019 fair. And we did some different fun things with it, but the craft beer lovers just, they oohed and awed over it. They thought it was great to have something specific for our fair. So it was a neat thing. One of our biggest fundraisers that we do during the fair is the Bear Hollow Wood Carvers Auction. We've taken a different approach to this than probably some would agree was right, but it has worked phenomenally for us. We have all the carvings brought in, we do an auction, but we split the proceeds 50-50 with different service organizations, or we open up applications for, people in need that, everybody's got somebody in the community that maybe, has somebody that's fallen on hard times for a health reason, or maybe a tornadoes went through or something. So we have usually 12 to 14 carvings, and we have 12 to 14 different nonprofit organizations or individuals that we split 50-50 of the profit with. And that in turn brings a very large crowd out for us, because we've got 14 different organizations that are being represented or supported. And so, they're bringing out a lot of different people there. Something else new this year, we're going to do a cornhole tournament. And Dan spoke about concessions later. You want to talk on that and add anything else entertainment wise?
Sure. On entertainment, we do entertainment in ours, but our beer garden is under the grandstand. So if there's a grandstands event, we don't have anything going on. So prior to an event, we do usually bands or just an individual playing music. But then at the end of the fair each night, a half hour after the fair's closed, we reopen the beer garden back up for the concessionaires that are staying on the grounds. And it really does two things. It gives them a place to go. It's away from all of the barn areas, but they've got a place to relax. They're not going out into the local bars, having issues going on there. But we do cornhole tournaments for them. We've had karaoke in there for them. But it just gives them a place. Your temporary permits always go till 1 o'clock in the morning. So we go from traditionally 11:30 to 1 for them. Last calls at 12:30, but it just gives them a place to go, and it really gives them a place to sit down, talk about what's going on. But the other thing it's did, our directors would come back there in the evening. So a lot of the younger directors have found out who these people are. They know the concessionaires, they know the ride owners, and it's really been a positive for us for the camaraderie between the fair board and those people that work our fair. So it's been very good. I want to talk about she talked about craft beer. We had a craft distillery that opened up in Xenia 3 years ago, and they make just like them, they make a beer for the fair. But then what they do is they have that beer after the fair at their brewery, and they've said that it's increased the revenue for them during that time because people tasted that at the fair and they liked it. So then they would go back to that brewery, and that's been a very good. One thing we haven't talked about is pouring, which is, do you do draft beer or bottles? And there's two different thoughts on that. Bottles you can inventory, and draft beer you can also, because you can inventory your cups and what's going on. We've always had draft beer. Now for the events, we use aluminum cans. So we had the aluminum cans out in front of the grandstands, but we always had draft beer in our beer garden. So the thing about draft is the cost, on average, a 16-ounce beer is going to cost you about 92 cents. A can, I think last year, and I didn't look and I should have, I think a 16-ounce can was costing us 88. So they're very close, but you've got these people that are draft beer. That's what they want. They don't want canned beer. And you've got the other people that don't like draft beer. So we have always had both at ours. It's pretty easy, especially with the craft breweries. A lot of them aren't canning or they're not bottling. So it's easier to have that draft. You just got to make sure you've got one of the trailers reserved from your distributor. So, but I agree. I think entertainment is something you have to have in your beer garden.
Kathy from Summit County, would you want to speak on something new that you guys are doing in the beer garden? Sorry, your dad threw you under the bus.
That's fine. So we sell beer during different events that we have as well. Like we just had a bridal show. and we had to have 2 bars open. It helped us like during the event raise more income. So it gave us, we had to come up with creative drinks using ale based, like Mike's Hard Lemonade, or like the Seagrams or some of the salsa. So we had to come up with a creative drink because here we can't get the hard liquor permit. So that gave us an idea to make these drinks and do a specialty drink, maybe frozen, we're not really sure, and sell it in a cup during fair. I mean, at the bridal show, they paid $10 for a souvenir cup with a drink in it. And it was only a 9-ounce cup. So we're going to kind of try to experiment that. We have starting this month through October, flea market that's coming. And so we're going to serve beer during that time. And we're going to try out these drinks and see how they sell. So that way during the fair, what we're hoping to do is get frozen machines, make these drinks and sell them that way in this souvenir cup. Just as a way to generate more revenue, but we're fence to fence. And sorry, we don't, and we don't limit to where they go in the barns, but I did notice that you guys did, but we haven't really had an issue with them taking them in the 4-H barns or anybody being, weirded out by that. So that's what we're experimenting with.
You want to explain what you're selling at the fair? You're a bottle only.
We do bottle only. When we first started, we did draft, and we had quite a few complaints. And then, we'd have, if we tapped the keg, we'd have a whole keg left. So we switched to bottles and cans. And that way we have a roller derby group that sells it for us. And they have taken all the classes. They know, they come get the change from us. And they handle everything, and then come at night, do the count with us, and then we recount it. So it's great because they take care of the inventory and they make sure, starting Saturday that they only open what they need so we can send back whatever isn't open. And we've been pretty successful sending most stuff back and just having a few loose cans. So that's worked for us. We sell them for $5 a can, no matter if it's a beer or a seltzer. And then, like I said, we're going to try to add these drinks in, which I was nervous about it, but my daughter, who's young, she's in her 20s, she goes bars. So we literally had a day of this seltzer mixed with this or that. And we ended up getting a really great drink that people loved. I was very nervous about it, but we sold quite a few of them. So we got lucky on that. So hopefully we'll sell a lot during the fair with this nice cup that has our logo and our website on it. So hopefully that'll drive people to our off-season events as well.
I think we're ready for the next screen then. So atmosphere is another big thing for us. We started putting a little more effort into building an atmosphere and not just having the beer garden under a tent. We had tried to incorporate our theme with that. So over the years, we've done different things where, we will call in a local decorator to help incorporate that theme in there. We have heard from our folks that come into the beer garden. They don't want bright, lights, but they don't want it dark. So we have put up a lot of twinkle lights and the Edison bulb lights and had those around. And the reason that we really started to look into atmosphere was after hearing a class out at the IAFE, and then we went in January to the OFMA and both of the presenters talked about the decision makers in the household, which are women, and how to reach out, target them, and making things more appeasing to them. So we really wanted to hit on that area, because if the wife is happy and content, or the mother's happy and content, they're liable to stay longer and spend more money. So we have, in turn, invested in that area to make it more, cute and fun for the women that attend. I was at a conference out in California a few years ago, and the two pictures here that are shown, the We Love Wine was in their building. They had a winery that came in and they served there, and it was just really neat to see how they had that. And then they had margarita machines set up throughout, but then they used the wine barrels, and it was really just tying it all together. It was a neat way to see them build their atmosphere. A couple of years ago, we added in life-size games, cornhole, cards, different things that, some of the folks want to do. We kind of tried to look at what they were doing back in the camper, and, they were drinking back there. So how can we pull them up into our beer garden and, do some of those things that they're doing back at the camper? And we've seen a good shift there. We're definitely building on that. Dan, you want to touch on what you guys do for your atmosphere?
And we decorate the beer garden, nothing like that. I mean, we try to make it friendly for people coming in. But one of the things, and we've all started talking about that, is you got to have something for the ladies. And the seltzers is big. I mean, there for a while we were doing the little Jack Daniels drinks and those in the Jim Beam, but we went to the seltzers, and those things have just taken off. So you've got to have something in there that really will draw for both genders. And like I said, we do cornhole tournaments throughout the week. About every other night, they're doing a cornhole tournament in there. Later in the week, it's better because more of the barn families will come, or adults will come down, because everything's done in the barns. And all of our prizes we get for that is we get through the distributor. So it's really not costing us anything. It's just stuff that they give us. It's t-shirts, golf bags, coolers. They give us different things that we can always use as prizes. So it really helps what we're doing there.
And I think that kind of wraps things up. If you guys have questions, Dan will be happy to answer all your questions.
Do you think guys got anything you want to ask about or talk about? Anybody else got something that they want to share with what they're doing? I see Cindy, you're on here today. I don't know if anybody else got anything that they've done or didn't see here today that they're doing with beer sales. Mr. Arter, do you have some comments for us this morning? I see our president, Rod Arter's on with us this morning. I don't know if Rod's got some things he'd like to share or talk about. We got a couple other things to hit on, but Rod?
I said 10 years ago that the Hartford Fair would never sell beer, but I'm convinced that's going to change one of these days. We were going to try to do it last year, and it just didn't work out in our schedule. So, and it might not this year, but eventually we'll get there. Now, other than that, just promise you that we're still doing everything we can, trying to work forward to get to the place we're going to have full fairs and get back to some kind of normalcy. Howard said earlier he could turn the page. I want him to turn it back to January of 20. Let's start over again, try to get through this. But who knows? It might have been twice as bad as it is. So, and that being said, thank Paul for putting this program together. I think it's, I've sat in on most of them, and I think they've been educational for people. And that was the plan from up front. And I thank Paul and thank Cara and Dan for presenting today. Again, thank all the sponsors that we do have. They've went through some tough times. And move forward, plan that full fair, and we're going to do everything we can to make it happen. Thank you, Paul.
Proud about it. Thank you. I'd also like
Dan.
to thank Cara and Dan today. They did a fantastic job. Like I said before, this will be posted to our YouTube channel. So make sure if you guys got something out of here today, go back, get your Fair Board members, then go back and watch this on YouTube.
I have a
Howard,
question
did
for Dan.
Go ahead.
Dan, if a fair is interested in providing this type of service but doesn't want to do it, what contractors are available out there to do it?
There's several concessionaires that'll take this on. I mean, concession by Cox, it's up at the state fairgrounds. They sold beer at Warren County for the fair board. And you know, it can be different ways. It can be a percentage of the net. They can pay a flat fee, you know, and then they get everything. So, I mean, you can find catering companies, other people. I know there's one restaurant in town that does it for different events. And that's a little different when you get that F permit. You have to have all of their information on there. You've got to make sure that they have their insurance. So there's different ways of doing it, but you can find organizations or people to do it that'll 100% manage it and give you a percentage. You're going to have to trust them, or they can pay you a flat fee. It's either way. You know, we've talked to, as my business, we've talked to a couple fairs about doing it. And they haven't pulled the trigger yet, but we'll see what happens.
You know, just let me relate two fairs outside of Ohio. One is Ozark Empire Fair. That fair is in Springfield, Missouri, where the IAFE office is. That fair has developed a full-time restaurant bar on the fairgrounds that's open 6 days a week. They do catering as well. That fairgrounds, in fact, is now owns 6 of their own food trailers that they use for their special events and the fair. But the bar is a huge success. It's built, it's themed, very country. They have a full bar. At Nebraska State Fair, when they moved that fairgrounds, they went full alcohol on the grounds, and the largest bar they have is at the cattle show ring. Now, believe it or not, the cattle show ring, but that bar is on 3 sides of the cattle show ring, with tables seating as well as bar counter seating, you know, sitting on a stool watching the show. And that bar opens at 11 in the morning and runs until 11 at night. And they have a full-time liquor permit on the grounds. I can tell you at Summit County, we're headed towards getting a full-time permit. Our township or our ward is dry. However, the city is in the process of taking over an MRDD facility that they're going to put a catering kitchen in, as well as a training kitchen, is my understanding. And they're going to be applying for a liquor permit. So we're going to try to ride that sled in, because we believe that we can, with the number of events we have that are asking for alcohol on top of beer, that it could be a very profitable situation. So that's our long range plan at Talmadge, where Kathy's at.
We're kind of the same way on that. I mean, with the events that we're starting to get, they all want beer. I mean, we have a monthly baseball card show now that's averaging 1,000, 1,500 people, and he wants to sell beer because he wants it to be like a baseball stadium, you know. And if we can do that and other events, we do an event at our grounds. Now this is full alcohol because it's called the Winter Bourbon Bash. Rod's been there, he can attest to it. That event, in one day, I can make close to 20,000. We made $19,940 in 2020. So that one day event can be something, but you know, you've got to manage it. You've got to make sure it's ran right. But you know, I'm kind of like Howard. I think there's going to be a lot more fairgrounds that try to get year-round liquor permits.
I'd like to pitch something in real quick, Paul. Oh, go ahead.
We got a question in, just if you guys can address the question, we got a question in chat box. Can you talk about the profit margins and how much money there is potential to make? I know, Dan, you just hit on your one-day bourbon bash show potential, but what about during the fair? Cara, can you answer that about what the potential profit is?
Sure. So I was just, as Dan was talking, I was pulling up a spreadsheet that I have for our concert. Friday night of our fair, we do, typically it's a country concert that we have. And we have around 3,600 people in there. In 2019, our profit from beer in that 4-hour time period was 11,000. The thing of it here in Mercer County, they will not pay over $2.50 for a beer whatsoever. We tried to raise it, and it was horrendous. They know what it costs, and they are not interested in paying the big city prices. And when we looked at what we were making from that point on, sometimes you pick your battles, I guess. So, Dan, you want to touch on the week of the fair?
Yeah, and that's funny. We charge for a 16-ounce can or a 16-ounce draft $5, and nobody says a word, or we don't have.
I would be crucified if I did that.
We even sell a 24-ounce draft for $8, and people will buy them all day long. But and yeah, one of the things, and I talked about it earlier, is we give a percentage to that service organization. So after the net profit, we figure out the net profit, we give them 25%. But like I said, that's a police athletic league. It's part of the sheriff's office.
We lost you, Dan. Your broadband's backed off on you. Or can you turn his video off?
On the high side. And then our concert, and we're kind of like Cara, we have a country concert. We're not going to have it this year because of seating, but good years we've netted. I mean, our net on that was almost 17,000. We had one year with rain where it was under 8. So it just depends on the weather. It depends on what's going on. But, when you put those two things together and you can net, 40,000 to 45,000 just off of beer, that pays for a lot of things for fairs.
Thank you. Rod, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is any of you that know me, if I see a beer tent, I'm probably gonna stop. And I've been to Springfield with Howard to that restaurant, and I drank a beer there, and I've been to Boland's. I drank beer there. I don't drink bourbon, but a lot of these, every time I go to these beer gardens, I ask questions about, who's taking care of it. What's your contract? What's your deal? And it varies. I mean, some fair boards do it themselves. They just have a fair board member man the beer garden. Some of them, like Dan does with the Athletic League, Crawford County uses the local fire departments, and they just take all the tip money. And you put the name fire department up there, I think they got tipped pretty well as I sat there and watched. So there's a lot of ways that you can man this without really, affecting what you're doing on the fair board.
Another good idea for our concert, we use the Harness Horsemen's Association. So we are paying them 50% of the profit that is sold out of their location during the concert and any grandstand events. But the way we look at it is we've not really lost any revenue from that, because that revenue is still staying here on the grounds. The horsemen are making improvements to the track. They're making improvements to the barns. They're, spending that money here on the fairgrounds. And if they didn't have their money to spend, we would be, put forth to accommodate that. So We've tried to work with, the Cattlemen's Association, the different organizations that are on our grounds, and take that opportunity to, basically reinvest in our organizations, but it's in turn it's helping us on our grounds because they, put money 100% back into our grounds.
Couple things that, and it's surprising, she's talking about horsemen. Our 2 days of our harness racing are 2 of our bigger days when it comes to beer sales in the grandstands. Surprisingly, the demo derby and the tractor pull are below our harness racing. And when you look at the attendance to harness racing compared to what you have for your demo and your tractor pull, but we just see that those people, they're there for those 4 hours. They're a little more beer drinkers, but we do very well during harness racing.
I think one of the most important things to take away would be knowing that we all do something different and it works for us. We do it well, but we are able to take from your ideas and incorporate it. I'm thinking when I get off of here, I'm going to be getting a hold of Kathy at Summit County because I want to know the recipe that she's doing, and I want to know how to do all of this, because I think it would go over great. Yeah, we might have to modify it a little bit, but I think it would be a tremendous thing for us to do here at Mercer County. So heads up, Kathy.
And I can say one thing, I bought beer at fairs before too, and you haven't lived until you've been at Summit County Fair and bought beer from the roller derby girls. Let me tell you, that's an experience. So that adds, you can take it off to your bucket list on the other side. And
so do they have their skates on while they're serving the beer?
No, but all this barefoot.
You, if you remember, if you haven't looked at a picture of a roller derby girl lately, you ought to go look. The skates aren't really the selling point on the on the side of it. So at any rate, so I know Kathy gets along with them real well though, and they do a fantastic job for them. So, and Rod, back to your comment earlier, we do know that. I would think that the Hartford Fair would name the Bud Light tent after you. So I mean, if they move forward. Well, folks, if there's no more questions, we're getting a little long this morning. I really appreciate all the conversation and the feedback. Appreciate all the work that Cara and Dan put into this. We got a couple more things here. Just over the next 2 weeks, we'll have 2 more rounds of sessions. Next week, we'll have a session on 501c3. So again, remember, ODA is pushing. You guys have got to secure your own 501c3 independent of the Department of Agriculture. So next week on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we're going to have a session in regards to that to walk you through that and how you need to pursue that. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about the health orders and the health rules and trying to develop a health plan. Now, that being said, we've got that scheduled for the 20th. We're hoping that we know everything that we need to know to develop those health rules and stuff going forward. But Howard wanted to take a couple minutes this morning and talk about what happened yesterday. He's going to get some emails out to you at all. But again, they changed the playing field on every afternoon. So it changed again yesterday. So Howard, you have some comments?
Yes, this order that I have up here is the one that dropped, and the date on it is as seen, April 5th. It is posted on the Ohio Department of Health website. I have reached out for a clarification, which I have received a very blunt clarification from the governor's office. And my answer was, what does this mean about grandstand seating? Because if you listen to Stephanie Cloud, the health director yesterday, she said no more than 10 people and they need a 6-foot halo around them. Well, what the heck does that mean? But anyway, this order is mostly about social distancing, masks, and inside and outside. The second order, which I'll route out, is the cancellations or suspension of all health orders, including the fair's health order, which was published in March. But again, the preamble is just what it is about inside, outside, wearing masks, and household. Facial coverings is basically the same thing they've had about wearing facial coverings. The one that is very concerning is this congregating point 3. Individuals must avoid gathering in groups and attempt at all times to maintain social distancing. When gathered together, individuals should be in a group of no more than 10 individuals that is separated from other groups by at least 6 feet. So what does that mean in a grandstand? I do not know. And we're going to have to figure this out here. Each individual should perform a daily health assessment, which is what we've seen. The social distancing requirements, again, the 6 foot is in. Down here, this number 7, exhibitions, competitions, and auctions was pulled out of the fair's health order that was put in March, very similar to one we had that we operated under last summer. It talks about the participants, family members, microphones, and again, organizers should consider, the virtual exhibitions versus in person. Indoor activity, bleacher sitting is 25%, or that type of seating for exhibitions. If it's chairs, it'd be 25% of what you had before. And again, that's in this fixed seating number 8. The signage is basically the same, along with a link to a new set of signage that they're recommending. Buildings, they're talking about this MERV 13 air purification system, which is very expensive. Virgil is getting quotes on the state fairgrounds facilities, and he will share those with us when he gets them. Food and beverages is something they harped on in the fair order about people sitting to eat. And on county fairgrounds, people are used to walking around, eating stuff on a stick or out of a basket or drinking out of a cup. I just don't know how we're ever going to force this. Now, it's taken it includes the word shall in there, but also the word should. So again, we're going to run through this, and I'm going to get this out, as I mentioned before, not to repeat myself, for you to look at here by noon today. But again, then there'll be 2 orders. There'll be the rescinding order as well as that. Amanda Signs is on. At least she was. Amanda, do you have any comments before I read what I got from the governor?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. What the governor announced yesterday, this is intended to quote unquote simplify the guidance so that everybody is kind of operating under the same assumptions, all events. But technically, I mean, there are no capacity limitations or percent capacity for outdoor events. So the only capacity limitation that remains is for those like inside, like, a Broadway show or something like that, is still set at 25%. But Howard's right. I mean, we're still going to have to figure out how that will affect the grandstands, but it should increase it from the order that we got last year. And the governor said over and over yesterday, the intent in terms of the groups of 10 separated by 6 feet is, use common sense, do your best. But I do think it's an inch in the right direction compared to where we were last month. And again, we still hear a lot of legislators saying that their intent is to look at the orders anyways when Senate Bill 22 goes into effect. So, I mean, my best guess and advice to you is, plan for a normal fair.
Okay. And here's what I just got a reply from Ann Vogel, who is my contact in the governor's office. There's just one order now. Pods no greater than 10 separated by 6 feet. Everyone needs to wear a mask. That's it for outdoor activities. So I'm going to include my questions to her along with her answer, along with the email I put out. And again, in 2 weeks, we'll probably have a little better clarification, understanding, because I'm going to press several health departments that I know I can trust to work with for their understanding on how county fairs are going to work. And then we can roll this into our session in 2 weeks, Dan, or Paul, that's it.
I think that session in 2 weeks, like I said, we'll put a lot into it. We all, we had plans last year. I mean, our goal is to make a uniform plan across the state with all the fairs so that they all have kind of the same basic operating tools, so that if there is a problem in an individual district or county, that we have we can go back and say, look, this is what they're doing everywhere else. So, I mean, that's the plan of that approach in 2 weeks. And you know, I know some fairs struggle with putting those together and some of us are good at it. So we'll just kind of share what we've got and we'll try and come up with the best case scenario.
And I just want to clarify as well that this new single order, it also replaces, you know, if you have campgrounds that you operate, you know, during or other times in the fair, that campground specific order is also rescinded and is now lumped in under this general order. This general order applies to any other event, festival, parade. It applies to everything. There's nothing closed or limited anymore, but they just all have to follow those general orders with mask, do your best to socially distance, provide hand sanitation, and things like that. So like I said, I do think it's a positive development. It's still not exactly where we want to end up, but it's definitely progress.
Good, Amanda. I think that helps out a lot. Like I said earlier today, I read that thing a bunch of times last night and I couldn't figure out exactly what he was trying to say, but that's a positive spin that you've put on it. So I appreciate it. Thank you. So are there any other questions this morning? We're just into an hour here where we usually wrap them up. Anything else anybody wants to add? Any questions about that health orders or anything? Okay, folks, I really appreciate everybody joining us today. I know we were lighter on a little